This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, guys, any...
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Big Football Show and more, the best Sunday morning football show on the internet by far. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, of course, Jack Hirsch down in the corner there, where we're going to keep him the whole show. We also have James Martin, who joins Sonia a lot. We just debated him yesterday. I'm exhausted from that. And good morning to our women of sports, Sonia Pearson. Good morning, everyone. How you doing today?
Good morning. Doing well. I hope you guys are too.
Yes, I am. I'm doing well. And sometimes I think I should, record our pre-game, pre-show talks that we have on here, because sometimes they're very interesting. And of course, the biggest news in the free agency yesterday was the Pittsburgh Steelers trading to get Justin Fields. So now they have two quarterbacks, right? They've got Russell Wilson for the present. They got Justin Fields for the future. Jack's not as impressed with Justin Fields as me and James are. I think Justin Fields will be a very good starting quarterback one day. I think he needs time to develop. He shows signs. He showed signs last year anyway that he can win a ball game with his arm, not just his legs. So I think it's a great signing. They get Russell Wilson. They get Justin Fields basically for a 6th-round draft pick. What do you think, Jack?
I think it's a great deal for Pittsburgh because if he plays 51% of the snaps or more, it becomes a 4th-round draft choice. That's the most they have to give up. And if he's going to play that much, it would certainly be worth a 4th-round draft choice. Think of it, a 6th-round draft choice, maybe about 50% of the 6th-round draft choices make the team to begin with. I mean, I don't know what the exact stat on that is, probably a little more than 50%. But in any event, just think of all the quarterbacks that got moved before Justin Fields. And the Bears waited apparently a little too long. They thought there'd be a real market for Justin Fields. But I want to praise the Chicago Bear organization. They could have held on to Justin Fields longer and waited until a team maybe became desperate for quarterback. Maybe they could have gone as high as getting a 3rd-round draft choice. I doubt it at this point. But they wanted to do right by Justin Fields, but they also didn't want any controversy in training camp because it's apparent they're probably going to draft Caleb Williams, and having Justin Fields around would have made for an uncomfortable situation.
Happy St. Patrick's Day to all of you before I forget my Irish laddies and lassies out there. James, I think you're more on my side. I think you think Justin Fields is going to be a pretty, I think, a good quarterback in the future. Sonia, I love your green. So, James, what do you think about this move? Do you think that Justin Fields ends up starting by next year there?
By 2025, potentially. But, yeah, as of right now, it's been put out that Russell Wilson is the definitive starter. And I agree with that. It should be. And it's clearly you have a motivated Russell Wilson and a highly talented, more experienced guy that's going to better manage an offense. But with that said, the writing, I think the writing's on the wall for Justin Fields. He's highly talented. You can't erase what he's done in Ohio State and the potential that you see, here and there in Chicago. It's just, how do you really put everything on his back when you're considering what the whole organization has done as a whole during his tenure and before his tenure when he was there? So I think coming to a more stable organization under the Rooneys, and I think he'll do well. I think he'll do well there. He just has to sit, as you alluded to, that he needs to sit down, learn from Russ, learn more of the game, I think, on a professional level. And I think they add a few more pieces around him. Team seems to be set right now. I mean, Pittsburgh is collecting right now, and they look to be making a run. So we'll see what happens.
He's been in the league for 3 years. How much more do you want him to learn? You want him to carry a clipboard after 3 years?
Jack, please. All right, please. You always want to start stuff. Good morning, Keith Engel, TGI Sports Talk. Thanks for coming in today. You always do. Let's let Sonia. Sonia was kind of nodding her head with what Jack said there. Sonia, he's been in the league for 3 years. He's been hurt probably a year and a half. And last year he showed improvement. Steelers, I think, made a really good deal here, and they kind of got their present and future set on this team. No.
Excuse me. So good morning. So I was a little surprised that Pittsburgh took Justin Fields, especially because Pickett's just left and went to the Eagles for their backup. He basically was like, even though they wanted to keep him, it looks like he was like, you know what, once they sign Russ, I'm not going to compete for that position. Let's keep in mind they only signed Russ for 1 year. Whenever you see a quarterback of that stature signed only for such a short amount of time, they have to go in there and prove right off the rip that they are the starting quarterback. That being said, I feel that Justin Fields coming from Chicago as their starting quarterback, we may not be surprised if possibly mid-season, if things are not what Pittsburgh looks like they may have going forward, they may actually be starting Justin Fields. I kind of agree. I do agree with Jack. He has been a starting quarterback for 3 years. 3 years is not a time to go in and basically have to learn from a veteran quarterback. At this point, how do we gauge what a veteran is in the NFL? 3 to 5 years is substantial enough time, even though Russ has been in significantly longer. It's not a go in and show and tell or sit and learn situation. It's a situation where he's going in, even though Pittsburgh is signing Justin now, and you're saying it's, for now and the future may be just because they decided to let Russell go after 1 year.
So Keith, let's talk about the draft, how this affects the draft. The Bears now need a quarterback. A lot of people are thinking Caleb Williams is going to fill that slot, but remember, he didn't go work out for the Bears when he was scheduled to. Kind of telling the Bears he wasn't interested in playing there. So what do the Bears do? Do the Bears say, okay, even though you kind of diss us here, we're going to take a chance on you? Do they take one of the other two quarterbacks? And how does that affect Washington and the Patriots in this?
Well, he did say later that you didn't have any problem going to Chicago later on. He said that, or at least his people said that. He'll be the pick. I don't know that he should be. I'm not a big Caleb Williams fan, and I don't think he'll be the best quarterback in this draft. But I do think he'll get that number one pick. How does it affect the Patriots? Patriots, they still look like they're locked in for a quarterback at 3, which I do not want to see. As you know, I want to see Marvin Harrison. There's big rumors this weekend that they may trade that third pick to the Vikings for Justin Jefferson, which I do not like either. If I'm going to draft, why would I want Jefferson, who's a great player? Don't get me wrong. He's got 1 year left on his contract. He's going to cost me a lot more money, and he's older. So, the Patriots are again, I think they'll take the quarterback just because it's an easy thing to do. But and again, going back to this Bears deal, I'm not sure how much for Justin Fields, and I like Justin Fields as you guys do, James and Mac, as you know. I do think he'll be a decent NFL quarterback before long, but I don't know how much he's going to learn from Russ, because Russ has got his own problems and isn't the best guy to maybe learn from, because he's become a bit of a diva since his time in Seattle. So,
well, I don't know who the offensive coordinator or the quarterback coach is.
Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith is the offensive coordinator. Yeah.
And
he did a lot for Desmond Ritter, didn't he?
Yeah.
Atlanta.
and the quarterback coach, Keith, I don't know who that is either. I know that the kid needs to take a step back, and Chicago ruins quarterbacks. That's one of the things they do over there. I don't know I don't know how that helps Caleb Williams. I mean, I know they picked up the Keenan from the Chargers, if I'm not mistaken, giving them another threat. So maybe they don't go wide receiver in the first round either. I'm not sure. But listen, I think the Bears are made out well when they signed Keenan. I said, well.
6th-round draft pick. There's going to be a lot of teams. There's going to be a lot of teams upset they passed on Justin Fields for a 6th-round draft pick.
And I want you to consider just a few days ago,
including
the
mine.
Eagles gave up, a third for Kenny Pickett, a 3rd rounder, a 4th rounder, and 2 7th rounders for Kenny Pickett. Compare that to the deal what the Bears got for Justin Fields. So Kenny Pickett had a lot more value than Justin Fields.
Exactly.
Howie Roseman, the Eagle GM, he could have called the Chicago Bears and gotten Justin Fields for less than he gave up for Kenny Pickett. Just think of that.
And
That's what I thought too.
I disagree with that. Kenny Pickett is nowhere near the talent that Justin Fields.
I'm not arguing that point, but he was held in higher
not with
regard
the
than
value.
Howie Roseman.
Mhm.
That's all I'm saying. I prefer Justin Fields over Kenny Pickett personally, but Kenny Pickett had more value. Think of it.
Mhm.
Why?
I
Trade
think-
value.
I think the problem with Chicago is that they overvalued Justin Field in the beginning, and so at this juncture they're desperate. But if I were what I would have done is just like what you said earlier, is waited until closer to the draft when some draft quarterback needy team will want that quarterback. You can get a little bit more. You can salvage a little bit more, right? At this juncture, they were just desperate.
Great point. And Pickett gets traded basically because of his attitude. He didn't deal with his trade very well. He was ticked off that they told him he couldn't compete for the job. This is after he refused to suit up as the emergency quarterback in their last game last year.
That's right, Keith.
I don't want
Forgot
those
about that.
I don't want those attitudes on my team.
Well,
Right.
To me, the Kenny Pickett fence there is just not a good quarterback.
Well, there's that too.
I mean, plain and simple. I mean, I think he's a hometown guy that's from Pennsylvania, and where does he go? He doesn't go to Pittsburgh, and now he's in Philadelphia. He's an upgrade from what they had there. Their backup quarterback Mariota was no great person either. So I mean, it might be an upgrade there. I know when Pass comes in, they better hope that Jalen Hurts doesn't get hurt because
there's a little bit of an X factor, in all fairness to Justin Fields. His rookie deal expires after next year. So the team has to make a decision. He might not be a stealer. Maybe some other team will pick him up, offer him some type of contract. Kenny Pickett has 2 years left before his rookie deal expires. So maybe the Eagles were thinking of it that way. They'd have Kenny Pickett at least 2 more years. Justin Fields only at least 1 more.
Yeah. So let's get
Justin Fields' 1 year option will be $25 million. I mean, the 5th year option.
So let's get to the other people that were signed that we didn't cover last week. As many of you know, Rudolph, Jack's favorite 3rd string quarterback, has gone to the Titans, and now the Titans have 4 quarterbacks there, and it's to me, I call this the could be quarterback room there. You have Rudolph, who could be, could be a good quarterback. Maybe you have Willis, who could be a good quarterback eventually. You have Levis, that could be a good quarterback in the future, and you have Tannehill, who could be good again. So, Sonia, I mean, out of that could be quarterback room there, what are your starting quarterback and your 2nd string quarterback?
So it's funny you actually asked me that. Carolina had a similar situation. It was like a conundrum of quarterbacks down there. And we were just like, why do we have 5 quarterbacks on our roster? Like, all these just in cases are ridiculous. In my opinion, you keep Tannehill, you keep Levis, and that's it. Like, Levis was drafted. He's there. He needs to sit, learn. As long as Tannehill stays healthy and stays, solid or basically, stays consistent, I should say. I don't know if he will be good again, especially with the missing of Derrick Henry now, but they've done some coaching changes there that should be productive to the team overall. I think this would be Tannehill's last go at it. I don't know why no one else in the league can't do what Green Bay is doing and just let their quarterbacks that they are drafted sit and learn at least for a season or two. I'm still pretty much sold that Levis is their quarterback, even though he was drafted so late in the draft.
Well, Keith, you're right. Tannehill, I think, is a free agent this year.
Free agent. He's not even on the
Oh,
roster.
Tannehill is a free agent?
Yeah.
Tannehill's not with the Titans. He's the mystery man. Why he's still
He hasn't
available
been-
and no one's talking about him?
I thought he was still on the roster for now because no one signed him. So you guys
He
are
might
saying,
be.
oh,
They'd have to sign him. He's got to sign a contract or he doesn't go to anybody. Yeah.
Right.
yeah, well, okay, well, in that case, then I regress. I digress on that. If Tannehill goes, then shoot, I guess they better keep one of the other guys they signed and let Levis.
Yes, according to
One
Robert,
of the
he went
veteran
for-
quarterbacks, Pickett, whoever it was they brought down there.
According to Robert, he's working for State Farm now. Of course, he's just kidding. And he is a free agent. Robert is a big Tennessee fan. So, that's the poor man's Joe Flacco there, I call Tannehill. So he's a younger version of Joe Flacco they have there. So you have that moving. You've got Joe Flacco. Speaking of that, he's with the Colts now. He's serviceable, right? He can throw for 300 yards on you and 3 interceptions a game if that's what you want over there. The Eagles get Devon White as far as a linebacker. Dallas gets Kendrick from the Chargers. Also, two places that they both needed to improve. They also got Sam Howell going to Seattle, which is a lot of people over there in Seattle are high on Sam Howell, backing up Geno Smith, at least for this year. Keith, what do you think? Do you think that Sam Howell passed for a lot of yards on a bad team last year? Do you think he's a future a starter there?
I think he's got some potential. He's certainly a better backup than they had last year in Drew Lock. So, I think that's a good move for Seattle. His time in Washington was going to be done because they're going to draft a quarterback. He showed flashes where he was, again, with limited talent around him, of being a decent NFL quarterback. So I think there's some potential there. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we were talking earlier before the show about, the Aaron Donald retirement. One of the better defensive tackles of all time, no doubt about it. I don't know where you would put him on the all-time list because there's so many good defensive linemen from years past leading up to his retirement. A question for you. He said he retires. Suppose a team needs him at the end of the year. They're going to go into playoffs. Do you think he jumps back in, maybe try to get another shot at a Super Bowl? What do you think, Jack?
I don't know, but one of the big crimes, I think, in Super Bowl history, Mac, it's in regards to Aaron Donald, why he wasn't the MVP of that Super Bowl against the Bengals. Cooper Kupp got it because he put up certain numbers that a receiver could put up. But all the pressures that Aaron Donald did on defense, making life miserable for Joe Burrow, to me, he was the real MVP. No, I don't think there's going to be a comeback. The Rams are contenders now, hypothetically. They made the playoffs last year. So I don't think it's a question of him wanting to miss training camp. That's a ploy that some players used in the past. They would hold out, knowing they'd come back. They didn't even mind getting fined just so they wouldn't have to go through the rigors of training camp. I don't see it happening. But then again, you never know. I mean, with an athlete, they might get the itch to get back and play and maybe start getting in shape. So you can never tell for sure.
And the Rams would do compensation too. In that case, if you were to come back, they'd be due compensation too.
Yes, they would. Yes, they would. And Odell Beckham was released by the Ravens. It's a big name. It's not a big player to me anymore. And Giant fans out there, stop talking about bringing Odell back.
He already signed. He signed with. He signed with somebody the other day.
No, I thought he signed.
USFL.
No, I don't think he signed with anyone, Keith. Sure.
Maybe the
No.
USFL. Jack might be right.
Yeah, no, he didn't sign with anyone yet. He's a big name, like Matt said. You got Odell Beckham's available. But what version of Odell Beckham are you getting? And he's been injury prone too.
Yes.
Yeah.
But anyway, Giant fans, stop it, please. Please stop wanting to get Odell Beckham back. All right, Keith. Before you go, I want to get into some college news for you, with you, not for you, but with you. On Friday, we talked a lot about the NIL and the portal and everything, and then we debated it, yesterday, which that topic, at least me and Jack won that one, and that was surprising to me. That
We're going to review the tape on that. We'll see.
Right.
All right.
I cannot believe two weeks in a row.
Well, we snuck by with a draw. Thank God.
We know how it works.
Kid scored some big time points when he exposed Mac for comparing Kirk.
Yeah, he got me. He was all over me.
He kept pounding that home.
Keith is a politician, and that's what I want to talk to you about. Keith, all right, so they got a task force going on here, trying to focusing on trying to get college athletes not to sign with a union. It's headed by Ted Cruz, senator from, I think, Texas. And, Saban is on this task force. And first question for you. This has gone so off the rails, and we've talked about it probably ad nauseam. I mean, people might be tired of hearing about this subject, but it's off the rails. There seems to be no way you can stop this from continuing to spiral. To me, and I don't like saying this because I don't agree with this most times, the only way to get this back under control is to get the government involved, which I know you hate too, and I do too. Let me finish. I hate it too. But who else has an authority to stop this or get this under control? Write some laws, use the Supreme clause where the states can't overturn it or go by the laws. Do something where they get this back under control, because right now Keith is still out of control.
Well, totally. And the courts in this country have really taken it out of the NCAA was weak to begin with. They had a weak president in Mike Emmert before Baker came in. He inherited a mess, so I don't know what he can really do. I don't want government involved because two things. I don't want them involved in my sports. And I don't want them involved in my health care. They couldn't even run the post office when they had a monopoly on it without not making money. The fix is not simple. I wish I had it, Mac, because if I had it, other than turning back the clock 35 years, which I can't do.
Well, Keith, what I'm saying is we talk about the problems, but we don't talk about solutions. I mean, anybody can stand there and say, "Oh, this is bad. This is bad." Yeah, anybody can do that, but there's got to be a solution there. And if there's no a central authority in the NCAA, who else would be able to do it? Who's going to be able to do it?
The problem is there are central authorities, and they had schools under investigation for this. Tennessee took them to court. That's why we got to this point, because Tennessee was paying people under the table outside of the NIL regulations, and the court said, you can just do whatever you want. So Wild West, do whatever you want. As long as you got courts that are going to – why put anybody in charge of any organization when the courts can just say, we don't like that. The players should be able to do whatever they want.
Well, you got to remember that the courts are the ones, and the governments are the ones that gave the Major League Baseball, football, and all that their power, right? They said we're not going to treat you as a business as we do any other business, right? We're going to give you an exemption so that you can have a draft, that you could make players go where they may not want to go. So the courts and Congress have been involved in sports since the beginning.
They have, and in some cases, good. And the antitrust, some of the antitrust suits were needed because players were basically tied to a team for their entire career. If the team didn't want to get rid of them, they could not. There was no movement allowed at all before 1975. But again, there are rules in place still for player movement on the professional level. Right now, there's not one rule in place on the college level. And again, we're talking about the problem. The solution, I could come up with a bunch of solutions. Just give the NCAA the power to enforce the regulations that were there before.
Who's going to give them that power, Keith?
Let them govern themselves and stop getting the courts involved. That's my point.
All right. So Rick
You
brings
should
up
have saved this for the debate, Mac.
Well, we're debating. I'm not looking for a debate. I'm not looking for a debate. I'm looking for an answer. And right now, there is no answer. And I'm telling you, maybe there is.
I agree.
Nick Saban is part of this task force. And me and Rick went over the format this morning, so we know what we're doing here. Nick Saban, to me, there's always a hidden agenda why people do things. I mean, they may have the greatest feelings at heart or whatever, but there's also other agendas at play. Do you think Nick Saban because now he's rubbing shoulders with a senator for Texas. Do you think that Nick Saban maybe want to get in politics? Popular guy in Georgia, runs for mayor, maybe a Senate seat, maybe a governor. Who knows?
He's an old guy. He
Do you
doesn't
think
have
that
time he can't run for all those offices because he doesn't have time to kind of jump the ladder. He's 70 plus years old. Do I see him in politics? No, but I do see him as wanting to be a voice for, again, and I don't think it's a bad place to start, a voice for some kind of normalization of college football. So
I don't know if he's too old. We got a guy that's 95 as our president or something like that.
I will say again, he's too old.
Anyway, that's interesting to me. I watch. I'll make a prediction right now. Nick Saban is running for mayor of Atlanta by the next term or something like that.
I don't think
He don't live here.
he's not going to be a mayor.
I like to say that Nick Saban is very strategic. You don't win all those championships without being strategic, and it's very funny that he's someone who's all of a sudden quitting football now when NIL and transfer portal comes in, and you lose your dominance. This is a guy who had a monopoly on the whole game of football, and so when that chink in the armor started to break, he left. And then this is his MO. He left Miami. He left Michigan State. He left LSU. He left those teams when the getting was good. And so I'm not saying you should be able to, you have the right to do what you want to do, but this is the same guy that told Plaxico Burress that he should stay and play for Michigan State, and he dipped on him. So
That's a good point.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And listen, a lot of people get out of town before the town burns down, right? That's something Tom Brady did over the Patriots, right? So I mean, there are a lot of people that do these things. I had to mention Tom Brady since I lost that topic in the debate yesterday. So Patriots.
Did you want me to talk about Brady? Is that why you brought him up?
Patriots news. You want Marvin Harrison. Keith, you're going to give away a first-round draft choice to a position that is loaded with wide receivers in college. Marvin Harrison was on a great team. That is one of the deepest positions in the draft the last 2 years. But you're going to draft him at 3 or whatever pick you're at.
Yep. Best player in the draft. Best player in the draft. The surest thing in the draft for me to be successful. Not just early on, but potentially, because we don't know about any of these kids. Potentially to have a long, successful career and help the Patriots right themselves, because we can still pick a quarterback later. We talk about how deep the quarterback is the draft is in wide receivers. There's quarterbacks late all the time. We talked about this the other day.
So you take Marvin Harrison, and these 3 quarterbacks go on, and they become franchise quarterbacks. And guess what the Patriot fans are going to say?
That's a risky take. That's a risky
draft. Yes.
Keith is right. I agree with Keith. Marvin Harrison is a sure thing.
Yeah.
I mean, worst case scenario, he'll be better than average. That would be him flopping if he's just better than average. I mean, these quarterbacks are always unpredictable. I mean, look at Zach Wilson with the Jets, number 2 pick overall. And now, he can't even get a job in the NFL 3 years later.
That whole draft that were the first 15 picks, Mac Wilson, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, who, again, debatable, hasn't maybe turned out. We still think he will. And Trey Lance.
Yeah.
The only people that did there were the 49ers.
When is the Patriots' next pick after number 3?
20. I want to say 36 or something like that.
That's about right.
You're right. So take Marvin Harrison and then get Michael Penix Jr.
Yeah,
he should be there when they draft second. If he doesn't, Bo Nix might be there. Although Bo Nix reminds me a little bit of Mac Jones, but
okay, a little bit better, a better athlete than Mac
for another month, and nothing we say will happen. So
a little bit better athlete, I think. Keith Angle it will be on the show. Right now, he's going on his show over on the other side. So, Keith, have a great day. TGI Sports Talk. Thanks for coming in, Keith.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Take care.
All right, so Keith Angle, he's still lobbying for Marvin Harrison Jr., a wide receiver. I guess. Give me a big offensive tackle. defensive nose guard, I'll take them ahead of Marvin Harrison.
Well, you're talking about best player as opposed to need. You know, you take the best player unless you're so loaded in that position that makes no sense.
Patriots do need wide receivers. I mean,
if they're picking in the second round at like the 30-something position, I don't see him still being there that late in the draft, honestly. I mean, I do feel like it's a saturated draft with quarterbacks and wide receivers at the top, but to go in that far deep into the second round, I just don't think that talent of that caliber is still going to be there when it comes back around for them.
Unless they're unknown, right, Sonia? Unless there's someone that we don't see that the scouts see, you know, that happens too a lot. Where all of a sudden you find a great quarterback on a smaller school. So, me and Jack discussed something yesterday, and this is pretty interesting, right? A woman in the Antarctic, she runs for 700 miles, guys. In the Antarctic, in sub-below zero weather, ferocious winds. She's, taking ice baths to get clean. I mean, to me, this is inspiring for anybody. It's kind of a test to your mind and your body. And I'm telling you right now, if it was me and I was the head coach of a team, I would get a film clip of this. And anytime the players started whining about it being too hot and, they working too hard, I would play this video for them every time before they went on a practice field and before a game, just to inspire them and say, you complaining that, it's a little hot, it's 90 degrees. Well, try to train in this. This woman just ran 700 miles. Pretty inspiring. She says, Sonia, she wants to do it for the young girls out there. They always do, to see if you put your mind to anything, you can do things. But man, that's extreme. I don't see Sonia out there running 700 miles in Antarctica.
So I'm not going to be doing that. However, I do have a cousin. My mom was telling me she's in Germany. She is doing a cross country hike or cycle or something to that effect, like throughout whatever the weather is coming up this next winter. So I don't have it in me. I mean, that is my first cousin, but that's not me. I don't know how this lady gonna survive, but they say women, we're tough, but 700 miles and it's frigid there. I don't even know how people live in Antarctica. However, they live in Chicago too, and sometimes they say it's even colder there with wind chill. But kudos to this lady. I'm gonna have to pull that clip because I didn't know about that. So thanks for sharing. That's not on my bucket list at all.
Mine either.
Keep praising this woman, and you're the biggest supporter of load management, with athletes. So come on.
Who's the biggest? Who are you talking to?
You support load management. You got to rest guys and this and that.
When did I start supporting load management?
Oh, okay. Maybe I misunderstood. Okay.
All right. Okay. Yeah. No. I think players should work hard all the time and play hard all the time. There's no load management on my team, Jack. You know that. I expect that of you every day on our show. And I don't want to. You're not going to sit back and do nothing. Anyway, NBA news. We've talked about Bronny James being in the shadow of his father, of course, one of the greatest of all time, and we really never talk about the player, Bronny James, how good he is, how bad he is, or however you want to say it. So I'm going to give you a little stats on him. Let's see. Last year, as a freshman, he scored 4.9 points per game, 2.9 rebounds, 2.3 assists. He shot 27.3% from the three-point line. Now, let's start there. Just a freshman, right? He's out there. He's trying to do his thing, trying to learn how to play basketball at the college level. But I've seen some freshmen in college that play 1 year and they go to the pros because they're very talented. Playing at USC, of course, he's had the cardiac arrest and all this good stuff, or the cardiac problem with his heart. So if you're a scout, I'm going to tell you what I read. I'm going to ask you guys, each individual, if you're a scout from an NBA team, starting with James, is this the type of player you're looking to put on your team? Forget about his father, just him himself.
No, absolutely not. I mean, he's undrafted if I have to pick him right now, if he decided to come out. But, I mean, he has some potential. I mean, he's a great defender, wing defender. I mean, some of the things that don't show up, what you just mentioned, and he could shoot okay. He's decent. but he's not. He's an average player. He's an average player. I mean, almost mediocre, dare I say. And so, but if I'm a scout, just not having to go off that, like you see, taking his father out. I'm not gonna. You can't look at Brian. You have to look at Bronny James differently because he's the son of arguably probably the second greatest NBA player. I mean, that's in my opinion, in the NBA. I mean, next to Michael Jordan. But he's going to get picked by somebody because they're not only looking at Bronny, they're looking at Bronny as a bridge, as someone who can potentially draw in LeBron James as well. So that's the only reason that he would get picked at this time. If I were him, in my opinion, if I want to get out of my father's shadow, if I want to like create my own lane, I'd work harder and stay another year. You know.
Well, he should stay another year because he didn't have a normal year at USC. He didn't have a full year there. He needs a full year of college to prove himself. Right now, he probably would go undrafted if his name wasn't Bronny James, but that doesn't mean with one more year of experience, a full year, that he wouldn't legitimately be drafted on his own.
Well, Sonia, an NBA executive said, hey, listen, if he really wants to come out, not this year, but next year's draft, a good idea for him would be to go to the G League, where the physicality is different, the pace is different. It's more like the NBA than the college, because he thinks that college is, you know, what college is. College is college basketball. But if he really wants to come out in the draft, say next year, this might be the best place for him to go.
So, yes, the G League is definitely something I was thinking about if he were to go there. But let's be honest. I don't necessarily think they are really trying to even show interest in Bronny because LeBron's his dad from the perspective of pulling LeBron in. I think it's just LeBron is seen as one of these powerful NBA players that has a lot of influence throughout the league in general, not just with his individual team. And so just to show face, they're basically like, oh, okay, this is LeBron's son. Let's give him a chance to see if he can, you know, the genetics will follow suit with this name that he has. Let's see if he physically can become not as great as LeBron, because that's going to be extremely difficult, but at least comparable to be able to be decent on the team. So I don't think it's they're trying to lure LeBron in, because LeBron is kind of like towards the twilight now. He may or may not even stick around to try to wait out, you know, Bronny actually getting in. We just don't know how that's going to pan out. But in my opinion, you know, we saw it with, unfortunately, I can't remember his first name, but Comanche, the gentleman that was with the Kings, went to the G League, went down there in Las Vegas and killed this girl. Him and his girlfriend are arrested for that now. And so now he's out of the league. This just happened last month, or February it was, no, January. So we know that the G League is something that's well connected, because that specific league is still connected to the Kings. It gives them an opportunity to go play with the G League and possibly even come back. But right now, like James said, I don't feel like Bronny is even on that talent. I think it's a name only thing. I don't even think, you know, a G League, you know, would be reaching for someone if it was just say it was one of us, you know, that was playing that is not connected to the James name. Would we even be looked at? So I think that's what we kind of boil down to at this point.
Yeah, Sonia, I mostly agree with you, but the genetics part of it, I don't think there's one team that's thinking, oh, he might have the LeBron James genetics. I think that's completely irrelevant, but you make good points otherwise. What James said before can't be ignored, even though Max said maybe let's overlook it for now. The LeBron James factor, any team getting Bronny is going to get LeBron at some point. He's working out his contract to be available when Bronny's there. And LeBron once said he'd play for the league minimum. LeBron is so wealthy, he can play for the league minimum for 1 year just to play with Bronny. And any team that LeBron goes to, the value of that franchise goes up. Don't think the owners don't realize the dollar value goes up for them.
Yeah, I understand that. But would he actually be playing, or would he still just be, you know, kind of on the team? Like, I guess just to go in and come out is still playing, you know.
There's baggage for any team that gets LeBron in this sense. Like you said, like everyone said, he wields too much power. Can you imagine LeBron getting uptight because the coach is keeping Bronny on the bench and hardly playing? Imagine a coach like Tom Thibodeau, who's been known to glue players to the bench, glues Bronny to the bench if he's with the Knicks, and Bronny's not playing for 8 games in a row at all. Then LeBron gets mad, there's dissension, and it would be a great soap opera thing to follow.
He's going to try to get the coach fired for sure. Coach killer.
So according to this NBA executive that brought this up, they said if he stays in the draft, he's in the draft right now. He pulled himself out, I think, last year, but he's in the draft. If he was in the draft right now, the Lakers would probably take him with their 56th pick. So I mean, you can't talk. See, this is the point I'm trying to make. You can't talk about Bronny James without bringing LeBron in it. There's a lot better players out there in college right now. And I know he's just a freshman. I get it, but there's a lot more better players out there, and they're not talking about their draft status at all. They're talking about Bronny James because of LeBron James, and I think it's kind of a shame.
Can I just say something, Matt, just quickly on that? I don't think the Lakers would risk waiting until the second round because other teams would know that they were waiting to take Bronny James and someone would sabotage the Lakers. I think the Lakers would take him with their first overall pick in the draft. Whether that's going to be just to please LeBron. And then they put a spin on it. No, Bronny's a great talent. And 1 year ago, he was projected to be top 10. We hear all that talk.
Yeah, I think their first pick is 56 Jackets. That's what I think their first pick is, if I'm not mistaken. So anyway, that's why they said they take him with the 56th first. And maybe they would move up to get Bronny. I don't know. I have no idea. So another this guy JJ Redick, he's a famous basketball player and commentator, was kind of talking about stop ridiculing Kevin Durant. The haters, the critics. I don't know who out there is really criticizing Kevin Durant. The only thing I hear bad about Durant is that he joined Golden State when they already had a championship caliber team, and that maybe he likes to jump on bandwagons, right? If he thinks his team may go to the playoffs, he'll join his team instead of starting a team. That he's not really a leader on the court. He's too quiet. That's the kind of nobody's saying there and saying that he's not a great player, that he won't go to the Hall of Fame. I think he's averaging for all his years in basketball, he's got over 25 points per game. The guy is definitely one of the greatest of all time. But to me, this is something that a lot of commentators do to get attention. And, James, I know you follow basketball at least a little bit. I mean, who wouldn't take Durant on their team? Who wouldn't take Kevin Durant? What is he talking about?
Well, I think the problem is, everybody would take Kevin Durant. He's one of the most distinguishable mismatches out there. The guy's got a 7-foot wingspan. He's almost a 7-footer, and no one can stop that silky smooth jump shot. It's just he's one of the best shooters I've ever seen. Now, with that said, he's also one of the most sensitive guys too, as well. And like this person, Jason Gonzalez, said, he isn't a leader. He's not. When you compare him and LeBron, I hate to even compare players. Say what you want about LeBron and his baggage. He will galvanize players around him and make them better. But with that said, KD, man, he's just not. He's sensitive. This same guy that had a burner account arguing with people in the comments about things that's being said about him. So he's more sensitive about the situation. So I think maybe people are alluding to that. But the one, like you said, the one knock on him, maybe Golden State and being sensitive. But other than that, man, this guy's going to the Hall of Fame too. I don't know.
Yeah, he's been on
just
14.
Shaquille O'Neal's number 8 position for all-time leading scorer for the number 8, though. Like, you're right.
Yeah, he's been on 4 teams, Kevin Durant, and just to examine the 4 teams he was on. Well, he was with OKC for years, and him and Russell Westbrook were considered to be dead even for who was the best player. And now we see Durant clearly was a better player than Russell Westbrook ever was. But Durant couldn't take charge of that situation, and he left OKC without us knowing who was the best player. I mean, if he was a real leader like LeBron was when he was playing with Kyrie Irving, everyone knew LeBron was the man, but they didn't know Durant was the man with Russell Westbrook because he wasn't. Then he goes to Golden State and he proved he was a better player than Steph Curry when he was there. Think of that, right? But he joined a 73-win team that set a record for season, regular season victories. So he was considered just a small missing piece. So he didn't really get his due despite the 2 final MVPs. He went to the Nets, and like Jason Gonzalez said, he wasn't a leader. Kyrie Irving was the leader, a bad leader, but nevertheless the leader. And Durant was no type of leader with the Nets. And now he goes to Phoenix, and it's between him and, Devin Booker, who's the main guy on that team. We don't even know. If this was someone like LeBron, LeBron's the leader. LeBron might not be the best player on the Lakers. It might be Anthony Davis, but everyone looks at LeBron as being the leader.
So what is the leader though? I mean, you have different types of leading, right? You got leading by example. You got leading by being loud. I mean, what do you consider a leader? I mean, Eli Manning didn't yell at anybody. He didn't get anybody's face. He wasn't a real true leader out on the field. He just played really good football when he had to play football, and he led that way and took the Giants to 2 Super Bowls. So I understand what you're saying, but do you have to yell? Do you have to get in people's face? Do you have to? I mean, to be a good leader.
You have to be an outstanding player. On the Giants, I think Michael Strahan was more of a leader than Eli Manning, but Eli Manning was so respected, it didn't matter. If you're so highly respected, you can get away without being the leader because they'll defer to you and they'll still look up to you. Even though in those Giant teams, Michael Strahan was the leader. He was there for the first Super Bowl, not the second. It depends personalities, but you have to be one of the top players, if not the top player, to be a leader.
All right, okay. I mean, I don't know who the leader of this show is. Sometimes I think it's Sonia. Sometimes I think it's James. Sometimes I think it's Jack. So, I mean, I'm really but anyway, I get it. Listen, I mean, does he have to be a leader? I mean, if he doesn't want to be a leader, why should he be a leader? I mean, the guy plays great basketball every night for you. One of the greatest scorers of all time. So, I mean, why does he have to be a leader? Can't he just, you need good followers. You don't win wars by just good leaders. You got to have good followers too, right? Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, guys, let me ask you this. I mentioned Kyrie Irving a little while ago. Give me your opinion. When he was with Cleveland, we know LeBron was the leader. Kyrie Irving couldn't take over. Kyrie Irving went to Boston. He was a semi-leader, and it didn't work out there. He went to the Nets. He was the leader. Durant wasn't. It didn't work out. Now he's with Dallas. Everyone knows Kyrie Irving can't be bold and step up and act like the leader because he got Luka there. And you don't ruffle Luka's feathers. Luka won't put up with it. So Kyrie Irving knows his place. He's 1A. He's not quite the guy, to be taking charge of the team. I mean, I think it depends on the team, where you wind up, what your situation there, who your teammates.
This is the thing with the skill set of Durant. People are going to assume that you're 1A because of how good you are with your track record of where you've been. But I mean, if he just wants to be a 1B, to be able to because he's not the guy that seems to want to take over. I don't think he likes the pressure on him. And that's what comes with it. When you're like that good, you can't just you got to take the good with the bad. Because when you got to be that person that falls on the sword if nothing goes right, and everything's probably going to fall on you. I just don't think he has the fortitude to do that. Just given the history of this guy having fake Twitter accounts and arguing with people. Why are you arguing with anybody out in the field? You should care less what they think. It should be about what you think on the court. That's what matters. You and your teammates, the respect of your team. And I just don't see he has that. And I mean, I'm a fan of his game, but seeing him as a leader or seeing him as a 1A, I don't know. I'm just not there.
All right.
It's like I always say, unfortunately, we're in an era where everything is clicks and likes. So many times we see professional bleed over into personal, and before you know it, one has overtaken the other, and then your performance on the field, on the court, wherever you are, has now been affected. I got that phrase, Mac, from Oregon's coach right before they beat Colorado.
I was going to say, I think somebody came up with that first, but anyway, it's a good line. So Sonia,
I got it from him.
Sonia, I got the perfect example of what I'm talking about. All right, Steph Curry. Steph Curry is a great shooter. He's considered the leader of the team. He doesn't act like the leader. In fact, when Kevin Durant went to play with Golden State, what did Steph Curry say? Go ahead and do your thing. I'll take a step back. So isn't that leading? I mean, this is what I'm questioning. We have a thing where this is what a leader is. I don't necessarily agree with that, because if you say Golden State, who do you talk about? Steph Curry, right?
Yeah. So sometimes being a leader is not about being the loudest or being the most visible. Sometimes the best leader is the one behind the scenes that is doing all the play shots, the play calls, and you don't see them. Think about your greatest movies. Yes, they have the best actors, but without the writers, without the producers, none of that goes on. They are the ones that reel in all the talent to make the production of what we see on the big screen. It's the same thing with sports figures. If you're loud, people have different types of leadership styles. You hear about that in the business world, in the corporate world, leadership styles, leadership tactics. Loud and visible does not equal a leader. In your face does not equal a leader. What equals a leader is the success you bring to the organization that you are a part of.
All right. Okay. Because
and it's a question of respect. Maybe the example I gave in football doesn't apply to basketball, because in football you have an offensive and a defensive unit where you could get a few leaders sometimes on a team. In basketball, you can't get a few leaders on a team. Sometimes there's one player that's a focal point where someone can't come in and be a leader over that player. Like, take Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid had a close friendship with Jimmy Butler. If Jimmy Butler ever came back to the Sixers, Embiid might not mind Butler taking over as the leader, because of the friendship involved. But you have to look at the particular teams. At Boston, it would be Tatum. Sometimes you just have to look at the box scores. Look at the Knicks. Jalen Brunson takes far more shots than anyone else because he's the leader. There's no one that's really going to call him out on it. Okay, so it depends on the situation, the team, the sport too.
I would agree with that 100%. I mean, if you look at some of the greatest coaches of all times, they might be old school, but a lot of these guys got degrees in psychology, and they know what buttons to push, and this is how they win football games. Is that Bill Parcells, a very smart man. He wasn't just a fat guy on the sideline that yelled at people. He knew how to handle the ultra talented with the big egos, and he knew how to handle the smaller guys that didn't have such a big ego. And I don't mean smaller physically. I mean the part they played or the popularity they got. I mean, he and a lot of other coaches, Jimmy Johnson. I mean, you go on. These guys knew how to handle people. And to me, that's what a leader is, right? A leader knows how to handle different people at different times. And still, even though it may be, you might lose this game, you're going to get the most out of those people, whether you're a coach or whether you're the captain of a team or whatever. That's, to me, what a real leader is.
Matt, you make a great point. You mentioned Bill Parcells. I want to know everyone else's opinion. We're a little bit on football. Those Giant teams, even though LT was the best player, the real leader was Harry Carson. He was more of a leader than LT. No, he was a heck of a player, Harry Carson. So he commanded that respect. It doesn't necessarily have to be a best player as a leader. Some guys aren't cut out to be leaders. There's nothing wrong with that. You can't force them to be what they're not. And maybe that applies to Kevin Durant. Maybe we shouldn't expect him to be a leader. Maybe it's not in his personality.
Right. Exactly. I mean, LT said he called Eric Carson Mr. Carson. That's how much they respect, and that's how much of a leader he was. He didn't just lead the defense; he led the whole team, and that's why he's known as the captain over there. So, one of the greatest linebackers of all time, easily. So anyway, yes. So to me, it's really interesting. I think we have perceptions of what leaders should be, watching movies and TV and sports, and they're not always true, So I thought that was interesting.
Can I mention a little thing? I have a feeling, Mac, you come well prepared as a producer. You have all your notes. I have a feeling this isn't in your notes. In regards to Isaiah Thomas, not the great Piston player, the one that came after, who had a couple of great years with the Celtics. Age 35, was out of the league, had been injured, had been stumbling around for years. He got a 10-day contract from the Phoenix Suns. Emotionally, we hope he lasts past the 10-day contract and has found his way back in the NBA at age 35. We kind of wonder, Kevin Durant, is he going to go out of his way to make Isaiah Thomas look good if he can, defer to him a little bit so they keep him on the squad? Now, the leaders, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker on that team are the best players, I should say. I wonder they're going to advocate to keep Isaiah Thomas on the Pistons after the 10-day tryout. Not the Isaiah Thomas on the Pistons, because that's what some followers can say. What? He's back in the league, the second coming of Isaiah.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. We'll see what happens with that. So, guys, when you're thinking about and talking about sports, and we're like an adult time here, right? We're waiting for the NHL playoffs. I don't know how many of you follow the NHL. I be honest, I watched some of the local guys. I'm a New York fan. My dad's from New York, so I'll follow the Rangers. I'll follow the Islanders. I'll take a peek at Boston from now on. And we talked about this on the show yesterday about trophies and what is the best trophy of all. And of course, the Super Bowl went out, which it should have. But we talked about the Stanley Cup, and we talked about all the people signing the Stanley Cup and how interesting that is. I mean, you have history that you carry around with you from house to house, from party to party. To me, that I don't know if any other sport ever did this before or ever will do this in the future. But to me, hockey fans are a special breed, right? I mean, they're extremely loyal to their sport. I've never been to a hockey playoff game. I heard it's the best action in playoffs. I don't know, Jack. I don't know if it was you that mentioned it, that you saw, that you watch playoff hockey, or that you went to a playoff hockey game one time. But then,
I hate to say it, I'm not the biggest hockey fan. Come playoff time, I start getting interested because the tournament begins, and hockey is so unpredictable. I mean, it's hard to predict, winners of any playoff series in any sports. I think of the four major sports, the NBA is the easiest to predict the outcome of playoff series on balance, because it's so rare that a number 8 seed is going to upset a number 1 seed in the NBA. It sometimes happens in football. We get, the big upsets. Baseball's unpredictable, but hockey is off the rails. I mean, last year, the Boston Bruins set an NHL record for most points in the season, and they had a 3-1 lead in the first round of the playoffs, and they lose. They lose the next 3 and they're out. That gives you an idea how unpredictable hockey is.
Yeah, and I know Sonia follows a little bit of hockey. I don't know about James. James doesn't look like a hockey player to me for some reason.
Sonia's a hockey fan only because he's fed up with the Panthers.
Well, I'll tell you like this. At least it shouldn't be 50 years for us waiting to get anywhere like the Jets.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. I think
she got me. She got me back. Good one.
You there, James? You follow hockey at all?
Only when the cup is being lifted. That's about it. I watch the news.
Yeah. I mean, it's a small percentage of the country that really gets into hockey compared to the other sports, as opposed to boxing. Of course, we have Hall of Fame boxing writer Jack Hirsch. He's always involved in boxing and different. He's got a new venture he's doing now, which will be fun to watch. See how this happens coming up. He'll tell you if he wants you to know.
Yeah, well, no, I'm the president now, the New York State Boxing Hall of Fame. I did an interesting thing recently. I did an interview just a couple of weeks ago. The name, most people aren't going to recognize. The name is Charles Mooney. He was on the 1976 United States Olympic team, boxing team. He was Sugar Ray Leonard's teammate and roommate for those Olympics.
Oh, wow.
Leonard won a gold medal but on the night of the finals, Mooney got eliminated and he wound up with a silver medal. And it's always bothered him about that fight because 5 judges scored the fight, and he lost to the North Korean fighter 5-0, all 5 judges. And I kind of wondered, did CompuBox, the punch count total, have numbers of that fight? You'd think they wouldn't because CompuBox wasn't in existence at the time. I contacted CompuBox. I got all the stats. They actually had a way of getting in that fight. And it showed that Mooney actually landed 3 more punches over the course of the fight, meaning that on scoring systems that came after 1988, on certain scoring systems, the follow-up Olympics, he would have actually been given a decision. And they did a detailed computer analysis, and they said the fight should have been scored 3-2 either way. It was like a coin flip fight, that the 5-0 was unfair. And I produced that sheet to Mooney, jabs landed, body punches, this, that. And it was like he came across like this hidden treasure, seeing that. And it made him feel good because the type of fight he thought he actually fought, the numbers showed he did, because he was astounded. How could I lose 5-0? Everyone thinks I lost clearly. That wasn't the case.
Yeah, there you go. So Jack with his big, listen, Jack writes for Boxing News. He's right there for years. He was one of the first, maybe the first writer to go when us in Russia were at odds, go behind the Iron Curtain interview.
I was the first one there, actually.
Do that.
American, yeah.
Yes, first American to go there and do that. He said a lot of he's been in different jails across the country, interviewing fighters. At least one I know of. But if you want to check out any Jack's article, I imagine they're in Boxing News archive somewhere. Check out Boxing News with Jack Hirsch. He does a great job.
Hey, Jack.
Yeah, so he's more than a pretty face.
Unlike the other sports, I know boxing.
Yes. Jack is our human computer there. The Sports Center has to go back and look at things. Jack will just give you the dates and what happened way back when, like the 1968 Super Bowl Jets against the Baltimore Colts, which was of course fixed according to Bubba Smith, and that's why they lost that game.
Oh, I thought I saw the word A before the show, but actually I hate saying this. I mean, Sonia gave me a little dig before about the Jets, but I hate saying this, Sonia. When the Jets won that game in Super Bowl III, I know deep down the Colts really had the better team. The Colts made a lot of mistakes that day, a few turnovers and miscues. I mean, they really had the better team. If they played 10 times, the Colts would have won 8 of the 10. It wasn't as bad as the United States beating the Russians in the Olympics. We all know the Russians had the better team. It all came together for one game for the USA. But the Jets they only had a better team. You could argue that day, but the Colts were a better team. And the evidence was that 2 years later, that same Baltimore Colts team was way past their prime. Yet they win the Super Bowl 2 years later, and they weren't nearly as good as they were the year they lost to the Jets. Because that Colts team had a 13-1 record during the year. In the NFC Championship game, they beat the Browns 34-0. And that's a hard game if you're a Baltimore Colts player to live down. It lasts the rest of your life, kind of knowing you had the better team yet lost. And also we talked about, I think, I forgot we mentioned it before the show with Aaron Donald, where I thought he should have been Super Bowl MVP and not Cooper Kupp. Super Bowl III, the real MVP shouldn't have been Joe Namath. It should have been Matt Snell. 30 carries for 121 yards, 4 catches for 40 yards. But Namath was, the hyped up guy.
Yeah. With that trench mink he had on.
I know. J Train has to leave the station here. He popped out and popped in. He didn't like being next to me. during the show, so he did that on purpose. But that's all right, Jay.
He's a Saints
see you
fan,
again.
right, James?
Yeah, he's
Say it
the
again,
same.
Jack.
James is a Saints fan.
That's
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
okay, so
yeah.
he's got some problems as well as myself.
Yeah.
He's trying to deflect.
He's not, he was 9-8, so it's not that bad.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
But, the Super Bowl.
Nobody remembers number 2.
That's the truth. That's the truth, James. Thanks for stopping in, James. We'll see you soon, buddy.
Hi,
See you
James.
soon.
All right.
So I have a
Okay.
question, Mac, before we segue to the next. I have a question for Jack. So Super Bowl III was you guys' last time, you're saying?
Yeah, that's pretty pathetic, right? Super Bowl III was the last time the Jets win.
I
the
wasn't
Super
even
Bowl.
alive. I wasn't even
Yeah,
alive.
I mean, oh man.
I'll tell
Well,
you,
I
but
was,
it-
yeah. Oh.
It
What
was
year
the
was
most
that?
68?
70?
That was the game
Right.
played January 12th, 1969, when the actual
Oh,
game was
okay.
played.
So
In Miami,
my
yeah.
dad, I think, was in Vietnam, and my mom was still in high school.
Well, there you go. There
Yeah,
you go.
Richard Nixon was the president.
It
Wait,
was-
did he take office then? No, he hadn't taken office. He was taking office, I think, a week later.
Could
I
be.
think
It could be
LBJ was technically in office.
God.
possible. That's how long ago it was.
Don't
And-
talk about my Panthers anymore.
And you know,
Hey,
and
but
you know,
listen, the Lions and Browns have never been to a Super Bowl, and those are two storied franchises.
Yeah,
Think
that's
of that.
true.
They haven't ever been there.
and Jack's team actually won the Super Bowl, Sonia, where the Panthers did not. So I mean,
Hey,
it's
we're less than 30 years. We're just turning 30, bro. We're just
Yes.
turning 30.
that's right. So, but, you know, it's interesting how that game itself. Of course, Joe Namath said he guaranteed to win it. He didn't come out and say that. Somebody actually prodded him. Are you guaranteed you're going to win? Yeah, I guarantee. That's why he said it. He didn't just come out and say, you know, I guarantee we're going to win this. He was kind of prodded before he said it. But to talk about what I was talking about with this might being fixed, and this is an old story. Jack knows it pretty well. The NFL and the AFL, two different leagues at the time, played this with this one game. They came up with the Super Bowl out of nowhere. It was like I don't know. It was like a secondhand thought, but it stuck. And the Colts did have a better team. Unitas was hurt. The Jet defense got 3 interceptions, and Bubba Smith, the Hall of Fame defensive
4 interceptions.
4 interceptions, sorry. And Bubba Smith, the Hall of Fame defensive end, said it was fixed because they wanted this to happen. If the Colts won this game, the NFL AFL merger might not have happened at that time anyway.
Oh,
Jeff.
wow.
That's idiotic what he said. If Bubba Smith said that, he's a complete fool. You know what happened late in the game? I mean, the Jets did earn the victory. I'm going to give you an example. The Jets were up 16-0. There was about 4 minutes left in the game, and the Colts had first down on the Jet 1-yard line. So time's of the essence. The Jets stopped them twice on the 1-yard line before they scored on the third handoff. Okay,
Wow.
and time was important, and they lost time at the goal line, and to show you how tough the Jets were playing them. And listen, had the Colts not had those miscues, Joe Namath would have opened up more. He played basically a conservative game where they ran the ball. I think he threw the ball like once in the fourth quarter. You know, a very conservative game because they were blocking. Matt Snow was running the ball well. But there were a lot of mistakes that the Colts made. And that's what happens in football. You just have a bad game and, you know, you got to live with it.
It's hard to win a game when you have 4 interceptions. I don't know how many total turnovers were. I know about the interceptions. So.
One on a fumble. But in fairness, the Jets had a couple of miscues. George Sauer fumbled the ball after a completed pass from Namath, and the Colts had the ball on the Jet 11-yard line and then gave it back. And at the end of the game, the Colts executed an onside kick, that the Jets, shouldn't have allowed to happen. So, the Jets had a couple of miscues themselves. The Colts went 0 for 2 on field goal attempts with their kicker, Lou Michaels, just stuff like that. I mean, the Colts were a better team than the Jets, just not on that day.
And back then, the NFL teams were said to be a lot better than the AFL teams.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But those
I
Super
have heard
Bowls,
that.
those Super Bowls were, if the Super Bowls were the measurement of that, that wasn't true because you had the Jets won, Kansas City won. I think it was
The
7.
years 3 and 4, Mac, but years 1 and 2, the Packers dominated the Chiefs and the
Yeah.
Raiders. So
But the Packers-
that's what led to the feeling the NFL was so superior. You know, after Super Bowl II, the Packers beat the Raiders 33-14 after beating the Chiefs 35-10 the year before. There was talk about doing away with the Super Bowl, actually. So if the Jets came up flat and let's say the Colts beat them 27-0, there was talk of not even having that game anymore.
Yeah. So, well, anyway, and in Miami, and believe it or not, the Redskins were favored over Miami when they had that perfect season. And of course, Miami beat them in 71-72 season there. So,
71.
yeah. So, I mean, you know, at that time, everybody thought the NFL was better. And of course, the AFL, by winning those games, said, hey, we're just as good.
By the 5th year, the AFL-NFL thing went out the window. After the Jets beat the Colts, we still had an AFL-NFL carryover when the Vikings played the Chiefs in Super Bowl IV, and then the Chiefs beat them 23-7. And by year 5 already, they changed the alignment of teams in the conference. So the Colts wound up being in the AFC. You know, they moved the Colts from the NFL, who are an NFL team, NFC, and then now they're AFC, and they played the Cowboys. So you really had 2 NFL teams playing one another in Super Bowl V.
Yeah.
So that basically put an end to the NFL-AFL rivalry.
Definitely.
So when you talk about what's the most important trophy or sport there is, I'm leaning towards the NFL because we think about the past history that we have, like Jack did so eloquently to explain the history to someone like me that wasn't there, but it's so appreciated even in this present day because of the authenticity of the sport as far as the humble beginnings it has, and to see now how it is matriculating throughout the world. Like we are going from continent to continent, trying to spread the NFL throughout, going to London, going to Germany, I think they're going to be trying to go to Mexico at some point. But the point is, the league is expanding, not just within these boundaries of our United States, but worldwide. And so for me, that would be, I know there are other sports that are out there, they have soccer and things like that are already international. But the NFL, to me, the Super Bowl, the Lombardi is the most coveted. If not, it's comparable to the Stanley, like was mentioned earlier. But to know that specific trophy, it has that type of weight. Right, Brazil. Thank you, Jason.
Well, I think Sonia, the NFL is catching up to the other sports, right? Because basketball is already worldwide, baseball is already worldwide. Yeah. I think this is why the NFL is pressing so hard to get games overseas. These for years. I mean, Ruth went and played in Japan against their All-Stars. He had the Major League All-Stars against the way back when against this, and of course the NBA and hockey and all that are already expanded worldwide. So I think the NFL really is late to the party. They're kind of catching up, and that's something that Goodell is doing a really good job with because of the Super Bowl. That's what's worldwide, and he's trying to get the other games going to the other nations, which is smart. It makes it
the main title I would say is and Jack would love this, is boxing, because when you're the heavyweight champion of the world,
yes,
that is your individual champion that you have, and the whole world watches. Like the whole world knows about boxing. Like
boxing is turning into a joke compared to the other things. We're talking about Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. Imagine bringing one of the old timers out of retirement who's going to be 58 years old and putting him in a big NFL game and feeling he could still get it done. Imagine bringing Brett Favre out of retirement now and he's making a comeback. People would get excited about it. But how much would he have left? Come on.
Yes. Yeah.
Mike Tyson is going to do nothing but get in there and bite somebody, and that's going to be the draw.
Sonia makes a great point, though. As far as at one time, the heavyweight, there was only one. There was only one heavyweight champion of the world, and that was, and we didn't include that. That was the most prestigious and the biggest title you could have. And yeah, Jack, it's fallen off because there's more belts and titles than we know what to do with now, even in the heavyweight division. So, I mean, if you want to say, you know, truly, what is the greatest title of all time? I agree with Sonia. It would be the greatest championship of all time. It would be the heavyweight belt.
Yeah, if we had a choice, okay, let's just make believe we were all athletes and we can have any title we want, any sport we want, okay? Maybe the heavyweight championship, if you stand out alone in boxing, would still be number one. If you're on this, but let's talk about team sports. What would you rather be, an NBA champion, a Super Bowl champion, a World Series champion, a Stanley Cup champion? Not an easy one to answer, because the Super Bowl, off the top of your head, you might think that's the most prestigious game of all. But you have so many teammates on your team. You're an NBA winner. I mean, what passes the test of time the most? You know, like 10 years from now, after you're retired, I think the Super Bowl ring is the most prestigious thing to show off. You know, we hear about Super Bowl rings, you know, more than World Series rings. I know. Jason Gonzalez says World Series. I know it's all individual choice. There's no set answer.
Yeah. I mean, if you talk about, if you go back, the two biggest sports in the country per, you know, before I say the 1950s, in the 60s maybe, was boxing and baseball, right? You knew Babe Ruth was known worldwide, the heavyweight champion was known worldwide, and those were the two biggest sports. Football was just an afterthought. I mean, they were still in the 20s. They were still kind of, you know, like the old leagues where they had these jerseys from, you know, the Wisconsin Cheese Factory. You know, they were wearing these things early as it went. And, you know, hockey has been around, I guess you could say, forever too. But that was up in Canada and in the cold regions. And you know, as far as soccer went, we really didn't think about soccer as much as we do now. But baseball, if you were on the Yankees, like if you were Babe Ruth or you were Jack Dempsey, everybody knew who these people were, right, Jack?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Let me throw another one at you just for fun. If you had a choice to be a champion, this is an individual sport, and one of the two, winning the Masters in golf or winning Wimbledon in tennis, which one would you take?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I think you hate golf, man.
Well, it's not a sport. Golf isn't a sport. We've already talked about this. Golf.
I think it is a sport. I mean, come on.
If nobody stops you,
got to swing the club. I'm not a golfer, but
you got to take a cart. You sit in the cart. They bring you to the next hole. Nobody interrupts your shot, and you can either hit it straight or you can't. And that's golf. I mean, you know, if you can hit it straight, you're good. You'll win at golf. If you can't hit it straight, listen, golf, you have to have incredible skill to play golf. To me, it's not a sport. There's nobody stopping you from scoring. Tennis, on the other hand, there's somebody hitting the ball back at you. That to me is a sport. You know, I think badminton's more of a sport than golf, but that's my opinion. You know, I would say that. Incredible skill to hit a ball straight, to hit it 300 yards. Yes, but you know, I don't know.
Well, you look at the athletes. If they had a choice, they could excel in any sport at all. So many play golf. We got into this debate, Sonia Mack and myself, a while ago. Michael Jordan absolutely loves golf. He'll spend all day at a golf course. If he could have been guaranteed, the word is guaranteed, to beat Tiger Woods, the next Tiger Woods, greatest golf in the world, make the same money as he made, and he could have played golf or been the Michael Jordan we knew, which would he have picked? He may have actually gone for golf if he was Tiger Woods, because Tiger was as big as Michael Jordan, you'd have to say. I mean, maybe bigger, who knows? I mean, that's a hard one to say. as far as fame goes and everything else. It was pretty close. I mean, I think we could agree on that. Well, you're looking at me both of you like you don't want to agree on it.
You're talking about
I think in his
Good.
own league, he's known, he's respected, but there are other golfers out there. Phil, I can't think of his last name.
No, I'm talking about his
Nichols.
iconic golfers. I mean, Tiger Woods made a fortune and was famous. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Oh yeah, sure. That
So-
part, yeah.
So we've got a guest in today, kind of guest hosting with us. King Hooley. Am I saying it right, King? All right.
Yes, it's King Hooley.
All right, King Hooley, I'll let him tell you about our new show that's coming here on Roku. I'm sorry about the golf talk. We normally don't talk golf here, King. I normally prohibit us talking about golf on the Big Football Show, but Jack likes golf, so he's my partner, so I indulge him a little bit. Why don't you tell us about this exciting new show that we got on Roku, King?
Okay, my name is King Hooley. I am the host of a Truth Be Told Sports podcast. We are a podcast we've been doing this for 4 years now. We cover everything from baseball, football, basketball, even a little bit of hockey, because we often joke it's on the logo, so we have to cover it a little bit. So we talk a little bit about everything in a very relaxed barbershop type talk.
Right.
You might want to just full disclosure, put earmuffs on the kids if you want to listen, because we get a little bit risque. But other than that, man, we just we're 4 guys who really love sports from Mobile, Alabama, and we just turn on the microphones and hit record.
So we got somebody from Alabama. That's another state we can check off. As you know, truth be, this is a long title here. I think you got to shorten this title a little bit, King Louis, so I can pronounce it and say it correctly on air. So anyway, the original podcast featuring, is it King Louis or Melvin and the Barbershop Crew, or how do you say that again?
What do you mean? Well, it's Truth Be Told Sports Podcast.
That's it. I like that.
Yeah,
That's easy to say. All right. Mm-hmm. So again, hockey, we all kind of, we dip our toes in the hockey because, especially with the playoffs coming up and the Stanley Cup, we got, like you said, we do got to talk about it a little bit. What's your favorite sport to talk about besides football?
Besides football, I enjoy baseball. I enjoy talking about basketball. We even talk a little bit of pro wrestling on our show as well. So we dab in a little bit of everything.
All right, that's really good. And what kind of, this is going to be off the wall question to you. What kind of intro do you have? If I had a barbershop crew, I would want like a barbershop quartet theme song. Can you guys do something like that first?
We kind of modernized a little bit. Our intro is kind of like a hip hop theme to it.
Is it? All right. Okay.
Yes.
Well, that's cool. And I get the barbershop thing because a lot of people do a lot of talking when they're sitting in the chair with their barbers and the people.
I got to ask this. No, in all respect. I mean, nothing but respect. I think the days of people gathering in a barbershop to talk sports, I don't see it. I mean, I go in for a haircut once in a while for the limited hair I have. When I get a haircut, it's not that I don't see guys hanging around talking sports.
Well, if you're from the South, we do.
Not
we do that in the South, right?
Maybe in a bar. Maybe in a bar, but
I'm
not in a barbershop.
Yeah, I'm from
it
the South
happens
too,
in the South a
and
lot.
that's all they do. All
like
day
on a
long.
Saturday
Yep.
we get up early. We hit the barbershop. The conversations you hear someone, hey, you see the game last night, and it kind of starts from there, and then it goes it goes off into other directions as well. So.
Well,
in the South, and Mac and Jack know I'm originally from North Carolina, but I live in Atlanta. I don't know how they do it here because Atlanta's a little bigger, but my hometown, Red Springs, North Carolina, that only has 3,000 people, the barbershop is a club because it's literally, you see cars all day on Saturdays.
Oh, yeah.
People that go in there that don't even need haircuts just to be around more bros and talk sports and just bro talk the entire day, like all day long.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Jack being from New York, he doesn't understand that. That's the way it used to be way back when he was a kid. Well, you know, we still have the small towns up here in the Northeast that still have that. One of the guys that we know that's a huge sports fan that comes on, Craig Wright. He's next door to a barbershop. They do the same thing. They sit down, they talk sports, talk about everything, politics, everything. But mainly sports is the biggest thing they talk about, and it still happens up here in the Northeast too.
Thanks for the small town fact that I didn't consider, because I remember Too Tall Jones telling me he really wanted to be a boxer from the start, but because he came from a small town where they'd only be talking about basketball and football, he had to choose one of those two.
Right.
So,
Right.
so King Julio, let me introduce you. This is Jack Hirsch. He's a Hall of Fame boxing writer. Been also Golden Glove. He also sparred with the middleweight champion of the world at one time. I mean, he's been around boxing all his life. Knows a lot about boxing and other sports too. That's why I have him on. And of course, Sonia. Wow. She's our woman in sports here. She's on NESP at night, and big football fan. Does a great job for us at nighttime there, and is always a regular here on our Sunday show too. And we have a lot of guests that come in, especially news shows, because we want to get them out here. We want to get some publicity for them, and you know, coming on the Roku channel. Not only that, you'll be shared to the rest of the sites and so on. So you know, we're excited about having you on. What is your thought? Speaking of football, we've talked about it earlier about what the Bears did with Justin Fields.
Well, the writing was on the wall, obviously, with him, and his time was limited there in Chicago, I guess, because of the productivity that he wasn't producing. The fact that he wasn't producing there, or whatever. I feel that I think he got an unfair shake, and I think a lot of rookie quarterbacks get that as well. There's an unrealistic expectation for these rookie quarterbacks to produce very fast, and a lot of people are quick to blame the quarterback and not just the system. Sometimes it doesn't work out with the system. If the skill set for the quarterback doesn't line up with the scheme for the team, then you got to look at it that way. You can't just blame the quarterback and say you're the reason that we're not winning. You got to look at the coaching. You got to look at the like I said, the schemes and stuff too. So him going to Pittsburgh, I think will benefit him because he has Russell Wilson to kind of learn a little bit from, and I think he can take that franchise to the next level.
You know, coaching is my favorite.
Him being Justin Fields.
Coaching is my favorite subject. I coached for 10 years. You know, not at the highest levels, but I did coaching, and I agree with you to a point. All right, I think that you find out. Of course, it's different at the lower levels because you find out what your players are good at as you go along during practice and that. But to me, I agree with you to a point about, you know, the quarterbacks being rushed. You know, that's the position I played. It's a very difficult position to learn. Mm-hmm. But then you got a CJ Stroud who comes in, you know, first year in the league, blows up the league. I mean, sets records. I think it has a lot to do not with the coaching, but the team you go to, right? You know, normally these young quarterbacks go to bad teams that are badly managed, and they're put in positions like, say, go like a Bryce Young, go ahead, win now. You're our guy, do it. And there's no way they can do it, not with the people around them and with the situation they're in. So I think it has more to do with where you're drafted and what team you go to. I think it's that simple. What do you think?
Right. Yeah. I see Trevor Lawrence a couple years ago. Guy coming into the draft had a lot of hype, a lot of talent coming out of Clemson, gets to Jacksonville, and you know the history of Jacksonville prior to him getting there. Right. He's one of those guys, you know, that I think it's kind of rushed. People want that immediate success for them right off the bat, and some of these guys, they need to, you know, transition from college to the pros is different. It's a lot different than just plug and play. You know what I'm saying? So it's one of those things.
Agree. It's probably the most difficult position to make the transition into.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. I mean, you know, what the running back is just got to learn the playbook and run hard with the ball. You know, where the quarterback has to know everything that's going on at all times on the field.
Exactly.
It takes a heck of a guy to do that. Who's your favorite team, Kim?
Oh, I'm a New York Giants guy.
Hey, I love you.
I'm a New York Giants guy.
There you go. There
Let's
you go,
go.
King. Look at-
Oh yeah,
there
oh
you
yeah,
go.
you're the man.
All right.
I already know we're gonna get along great.
Guys, that time that Daniel Jones was sitting on the bench really helped him develop.
What time? What time are we talking about?
Well, he was behind Eli in the beginning.
For like a half a year, I think it was. I'm not.
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, that helped him carrying the clipboard. We see what he's become.
Well, it
so-
did help. It did help Jordan Love. It did help a few other quarterbacks that ended up, going to the Super Bowl. Some of them too, Jack. So I mean, it did help Patrick Mahomes, people like that. So it did help a little bit, as opposed to Jackson, who started right away, and
In
well,
Mahomes'
he didn't have
case,
to.
it made sense because the Chiefs had a really good team and a really good quarterback in Alex Smith. And everyone knew that was the plan. Mahomes was going to be that one. Yet in that case, I agree. Sometimes it is a good solution.
Yes, I think most times it's a good solution. There are the exceptions, and then Andrew Luck and people like that can come in ready to play. Very few and far in between, in my opinion, anyway. So how Sonia, I'm interested. Up north here, we're crazy about sports, right? I mean, New York, Boston, Philly. I mean, we're sports savages and we're loud about it. Down south, it doesn't seem like that to me. South is more laid back. I've been down south, I've been around the country. I've been in south. It's a little laid back. There's no banners hanging all over the place. There's no bars going nuts. At least when I was down there. Is that still the same way it is down there?
So it just depends when you speak of the South. Of course, different areas of the South are going to be different. And then it depends on the type of team you've had, like the success or failures. Like in Charlotte, when we were riding high, we went to the Super Bowl. I mean, the city was lit. Like I was getting emails all the time, hey, come to Charlotte, blah, blah, blah. I mean, they're still trying to reignite that same type of, fervor and fire within the team. But it's kind of like, the old human element. If you're losing consistently, you don't see it. So, of course, now I live here in Atlanta. Same thing. Atlanta, look decent. They win 5 games. The city is lit. However, the stadiums are not, filled out to capacity. But now that they have Kirk Cousins, the city's all, lit again. They're expecting him to be their savior. And, they're going to the Super Bowl. And so there are Falcon fans here. Like I used to personally have Panthers fans, Panthers flags, on my SUV, like season round. Like I wanted everybody in Atlanta to know, listen, I might live here, but I'm repping my Panthers. And that was even when we were not going to the Super Bowl because, I wanted to do that. So you see it like in the South, at least, you see it on the vehicles. Certain bars are dedicated to watch parties on Sundays. My team, the Carolina Panther Reds, we have different subsects of the overall club that I started because we have so many ladies that different areas, they kind of congregate with, a couple of whoever's in that area. They have different, chapters that kind of go and meet and have game day watch parties. And in fact, on draft day here in Atlanta, I'm part of the United Unity Tailgate Club. All fans are welcome. We're having this big tailgate. We had one. This is the 6th year we've had it. The first one we had over 2,000 people show up. Fans of all different teams. They came. They brought non-perishable items. It's for charity. They have a great time. So there's still, the excitement of all of that. But it's probably we don't have that same behavior at games that y'all do. That's the only difference. Y'all are loud, y'all are vicious, y'all are volatile.
Get out.
You guys don't want to go to a game with me because I'm just as loud, and so I always stick out. Most Southerners are not like that.
You lost me at the tailgate party when you started talking about other things that had nothing to do with the question. But anyway, so King Hooley,
we do. We show up. The tailgate is
King Hooley. What Sonia just told me is they got a bunch of bandwagon jumpers out there. When the team doesn't do well, they don't go to the games. Let me tell you. And this being somewhat of a New York fan, you say the Giants, but I imagine you follow all the New York teams. When the Knicks are losing for 30 straight years, they're still sold out. When the Jets haven't won a Super Bowl since 1968, guess what? They're sold out. Even when the Giants have a bad season, guess what? They're sold out. So what Sonia's telling me is that if they don't win, there's nobody in the stadiums, nobody saying anything. We're being hushed. So that to me is not nothing against the South, please. I don't want no letters from y'all, but it's different. How's that? I'll say it's not bad
Isn't it?
or it's different. But to me, the truer fans, I guess, are up north in the Northeast.
I would agree with that. Especially as professional sports. I live in LA, and it's all professional sports out here. So it's kind of like it is like in New York, and they're very passionate out here. Growing up in Alabama, it's college football. College football is king there. You're either Alabama or you're Auburn, and the day of the Iron Bowl is magical because the entire state shuts down. And I mean, if the Iron Bowl was played during the week, I'm pretty sure they would close school. It's that big down there. So as far as I say that to say this, there is little loyalty to certain sports professional teams when it comes to that. But if it's not about college football, they really don't care.
I agree.
But I
with that.
will say baseball, they do show up for the Braves. They show up for the Braves
big time.
regardless.
Oh yeah.
And you'll be happy to know this, Jack and Mac and King. When the Falcons went to the Super Bowl, you guys probably don't remember. USA News had an article on their main page that said the Falcons get their fans back. It was a headliner.
All right.
I kind of wonder about LA, the fan base. I tried to compare LA to New York, a major market. In New York, the Brooklyn Nets, for example, they're not that relevant compared to the Knicks. The Knicks are always going to be the team here in New York. And even with hockey, it's the Rangers. They're always going to be the team more than the Islanders. Baseball, the Mets and Yankees might be fairly close. You know, the Yankees are more the team, but depending on how the Mets are doing, it could become a Met town. It's a little more Giant town than a Jet town, but it's fairly close, I think, now. But in LA, I mean, are the Chargers relevant at all compared to the Rams? I mean, has anyone I mean, with Jim Harbaugh going there, is that changing the equation a little bit?
A little. I see 5 or 6 more Charger caps floating around LA.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah.
But this sound, believe it or not, this sound is more. You get a lot of Cowboys fans. There's a lot of 49ers fans, especially when the 49ers come to SoFi. It's damn near a 49ers home game.
Yeah, I mean,
you see so much red in the stands.
And what about baseball? I know it's a Dodger town, but the Angels are relevant compared, because especially with Ohtani going to the Dodgers, do people care that much about the Angels?
LA is a blue city. I will say that as far as the Dodgers, they love the Dodgers. You'd be hard pressed to find any Angels fans, and if you find one and you ask them where they're from, they're going to tell you Orange County.
Yeah.
And
you won't see too many Angels fans floating around LA. I mean, LA is Dodgers all day.
Yeah.
And the Clippers, they have big name players, but yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, isn't that a bit unfair? You talk about Leonard, Paul, Harden, they're more key players, and they have a good team. They have a better team than the Lakers. Yet all we hear about outside of LA, Lakers. It's like the Clippers don't exist.
It's just how it is there. You know, I guess historically with the Clippers, the Lakers are a better franchise historically, and the Clippers, they get to the promised land, but then they don't produce. They get to the playoffs and they don't produce. They fall away. So a lot of people root with the Lakers there.
I want to follow up before Jack took us off on Arano, what's fair and unfair in sports, like anybody cares. But anyway, let me take you back to college football, because to me, college football is probably, now we're not going to talk about the NIL right this second, but to me, that's the most, it's sometimes more exciting than the pros, right? The rivalries are historic. The turnout there, 100,000 fans going crazy, plus outside. You talked about Alabama and Auburn. My wife got stuck in Alabama one day because she didn't know that the Iron Bowl was there and the whole town shut down, like you say. So what you're saying is very true. So, you know, when you look at what's happening today in college football, what are your thoughts on all this stuff that's transpiring between, the NIL, which makes perfect sense to me, but then you got the transfer portal, people moving in and out, 1 year of college. What do you think? What do you think is going to happen here, King Cooley?
It's getting crazy. At first, I'm a big proponent for those guys getting paid. You know, if the schools make so much money off of their names, off of their likeness, it's only fair to get them to chip back. And a lot of people will give it pushback. Well, hey, they're getting scholarship, but what are they getting scholarships in? Basket weaving? Like, how is that going to translate to outside of sports? Their lives outside of sports. So I'm happy that these kids are getting paid, but there's have to be some type of way, like they're going to have to cap it or govern it a little bit better than they're doing right now. Because you see the guy was there, Isaiah Bond, who transferred from Alabama after Nick Saban retires, goes to Texas and gets like I think he's got a $3 million deal, and then plus you see him in posting videos in a Lamborghini. So I feel there's a little bit tampering going on with this stuff. So they have to figure out a way to make it fair across the board for everyone.
And that's
it's not gonna work. I'm happy these kids are getting paid. I'm also happy that, you know, with the NIL deal, I'm a big gamer. EA Sports College Football is coming back. Yeah. But yeah, they have to do something with this, especially with the transfer portals. Like, that's getting kind of crazy because people are saying this college like 7 years now. It's ridiculous.
I agree with that, King Hooley. I predicted that this would happen like a year ago, that all this stuff would break loose. The portal became free agency, and it's better free agency than pros because there's no contracts, and even college coaches move. I mean, this is like a week we've been talking about it in one form or another. That's why I wanted to get your opinion. Let me get your opinion on this, though. Does that really help the players? I mean, moving from school to school, it gives them a chance to start where they may not have started before. But in certain cases, doesn't that hurt them because they got to learn a different system? They got to learn a different way of going about things. It may even make them a worse quarterback in some cases or player than it did in the past. And maybe that team they're going to isn't as successful as the team they just left.
I agree with you. All of that, and then plus, it instills some type of entitlement to them. I can see a lot of developing that diva mentality as well. So, I mean, I think that's very detrimental to these players now.
And we talked about Bronny James. There's another big name out there, a kid that has the genes of pro greatness, if you will. Manning. Arch Manning, I haven't heard nothing about him lately. I mean, is he still going to stay in Texas? Is he going somewhere else? He's making $3 million not starting. I mean, Jack, this is what it's come to. I understand name and likeness if you're playing football, but if you're not playing, why is he getting paid $3 million?
He's getting paid more by Texas than the Steelers actually paying Russell Wilson.
Yes.
Organization.
Hey, great. Yeah. I mean, a great analogy. So Sonia, what if you don't have a shot at playing professional football, or you're going to be late in the draft, or maybe you just don't have the tools? I mean, are we going to start seeing 35-year-old college football players out there?
Yeah, you may see even some 40-year-olds. I mean, as long as the money's coming in. They could be what we used to call back in the day career students, that they just keep taking a couple classes here or there just to stay on the roster. That's why, like King and all of us have said, there has to be some type of guardrails put in, safeguards, I should say, because this thing is just going to get out of control. I mean, it's going to start on this level. Then you got, then legally, people are going to probably be like, well, you can't really say no because I'm XY age, they want to bring that in. And you got the legal side of that because people may try to, incorporate some type of lawsuit. Oh, they pushed me out of school because they didn't want to keep paying me. It's just going to get messy. So, they need to nip it in the bud now while it's coming up. And I think, like we were talking about earlier, I think that's why Nick Saban has inserted himself in this, because he's probably trying to, kind of circumvent and get himself involved on that level right now with that.
King Hooley, I again, like I said, we talked. I kind of knew this was going to happen. I just follow the bouncing ball. It's the next line in succession, right? If this happens, then probably this is going to happen. And I think what's going to happen next, and me and Jack talked about this again about, I don't know, a year ago. There's going to be a draft in college. College is going to actually draft high school players eventually. And I'm going to tell you why, because like with college, going into pros, the pros are now college. This is professional now, and you're going to have to get some kind of control. And I think this is where you start getting control, right? You start getting a draft. You got a 3-year stint here. You're going to be paid so much, and then after that, if you want to go to transfer portal and go, to go to another team, then you can do that. So I really think next is unionization. After that comes drafting in high school. I never thought I'd say that.
Makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. I can see that happening as well. My thing is football is just the beginning. If they don't stop it, it's going to spill over to other sports as well. Basketball will be probably the next big one. Baseball will happen. It'll happen in baseball. Who knows? Equestrian probably. We don't know. They have to figure out some type of deal like to get this better or fix it. Or even with the transfer portal, it's ridiculous. I think. I don't know. I can't even tell you how many times they're allowed to enter the transfer portal. I feel like one time is enough. If you commit to a school, you should honor that commitment. And if it's not working out for you, you probably should get that one time to move on to go play somewhere else. And after that, then in my opinion, you should just be stuck. You made your one decision.
Well, let me play devil's advocate, but let's say the coach switches and he leaves the school after promising an athlete, well, you're going to start. This is what I have planned for you. Now a new coach comes in and isn't using the athlete that way. Shouldn't he be allowed to transfer out?
That would be a great point a good reason to transfer out right there. But there should be some type of cap. There has to be some type of cap.
Eventually something will happen, whether it's the boosters run out of money or something happens that will end up doing it. We didn't talk any Philly sports. The Philly sports guy is on vacation down in Florida, I think it is right now. I'm not sure. Yes, there you go. So the Philly sports guy, King Uli, is a crazy. I don't know if you ever heard of him. TikTok, he has like. All right, yes, he's a crazy guy. He's a regular here. He's one of the starting of the Northeast Streaming Sports with me and Jack and that. But anyway, of course, we know that Kenny Pickett fences left. Cleveland is a backup now for Philly. Beats Mariota. I kind of thought Kenny Pickett wouldn't be a great quarterback. He just doesn't look like a quarterback to me. And he's a second stringer, right? Right, guys? He's a second. That's what he is. So good luck to him over there.
But I want you guys to think of what Philadelphia gave up to give him.
Oh, I know.
You don't give up a 3rd round, a 4th round, and 2 7th-round picks for a normal backup. Yes. I mean, there's something behind this. We know Jalen Hurts is solidly the number 1 QB at Philadelphia. We know that. But I got to believe they're thinking of possibly down the line, maybe moving on from Jalen Hurts. If Jalen Hurts struggles this year and Kenny Pickett was looking good in practice, there's going to be some type of controversy because they gave up a lot to get Kenny Pickett.
That would be the worst move ever in Philadelphia sports to let Jalen
Hurts go. I agree, but there's some motive. You don't give up that much. That's my point.
Well, you think about it, Jack. Backup quarterbacks now are making close to $10 million a year. I mean,
not for a 3rd and 4th round selection, and then they even threw in a couple of 7th rounders. That's a heavy price.
I don't disagree with you, but instead of money, maybe they're doing that. I don't know. He's a Pennsylvania kid. He's a hometown hero. I mean, he goes from the Steelers to the Eagles. I don't know. It seems like pretty much a baby doesn't want to fight for a job, because Russell Wilson comes in. I don't know. Maybe they know something I don't know. They did re-sign Sweat, a good defensive lineman over there for the Eagles. They're trying to keep their team together. Tobias Harris. Little interesting story about Tobias Harris. Everybody knows he played for 76ers. It's supposed to be like part of the big three, right? You got Maxey, Embiid, and Tobias Harris, and they're kind of fans are frustrated with him right now, Jack. I mean, he's not living up to what they thought he would be. They even had a graphic on TNT saying, "Where's Tobias at?" What's going on over there?
Well, they signed him to a big deal, so it was hard for them to move him. He was never really part of a big three, maybe a little bit in the beginning. And it's basically Embiid, Maxey. Maxey's the guy with value to other teams. They don't want to take on Tobias Harris's contract.
I agree with that.
You probably not remember when Jimmy Butler was like, "Y'all put Tobias over me," So now we see the fruits of what he was saying.
Definitely see why. Exactly.
Yes, and Tobias is good. I mean, he's a good player, good solid player. He's just not as you said, really not a top three. So I mean, he's like your fourth or fifth guy on a team, right? That's where Tobias is about. They put a lot of worth on players. It's all out of whack anyway. I mean, hey, he's better than Ben Simmons, plays 15 games and makes $39 million. So it's better than Ben Simmons, right? That's that they got him instead of him. So I don't know if you follow the Knicks down there, King, but I love the New York Knicks this year, what they've done. Great chemistry. Brunson's playing well. One Anunoby there is playing great for them too. And it seems they got a great team with chemistry. Randall comes back. He's somewhat healthy. I think they got a shot at going to the conference finals this year.
I believe so too. The Knicks,
I love this
growing up, I have that full disclosure. I do follow a lot of New York teams. When it comes to basketball, I watched Michael Jordan play. I watched him come in and bust the Knicks up all the time. I was a huge Michael Jordan fan, growing up. So didn't really follow the Knicks. I am a Miami Heat fan now, but I love what the Knicks are doing. I love it for the city myself because like we said earlier, the Knicks is one of those teams that New York loves, and when New York when the Knicks are doing great, it's great for the NBA. Period. Because the fans, the passion for the fans is great for the game. So I love this stuff that's going on with the Knicks right now.
I agree with you 100% there. And Sonia, your Atlanta Hawks, is that your team down there now? The Atlanta Hawks with Young and that. I mean, what's going on with them? Are they gonna? There was talk they were going to get rid of Young for a while.
Yeah, I know. So I know you asked me. I kind of balance between Charlotte and Atlanta, but when the Hawks and Hornets are playing each other, I kind of be like, may the best team win, honestly. It's not as bad as with Falcons and Panthers when I'm like, it's Panthers or bust. But excuse me, with the Hornets, with the Hawks, they were talking about getting rid of Trae Young. I don't know what happened with that. Like it seems like it just went dormant. I know right now they're sitting at 8 or 9, and they're in a position that like they were last season. They got to win to stay in. So that whole play-in position. Last year was Hawks versus Hornets that the winner went on. So we'll see because we're getting close to that time here again. And if things don't change soon, I don't know. I mean, that last game I went to in person was the Pacers and they got blown out. It was horrible. And it's like you may as well just watch from home at this point.
Sonia, don't you think that Hawks have to move on from Trae Young? He's the equivalent of what Russell Westbrook was. I mean, good individual numbers, perceived as a star player, but it doesn't translate into winning, having him on the team.
Yeah, I think at this point, they do definitely need to look into, advancing and moving on from here. Who they get, I'm not sure. But I will insert real quick that I was really shocked that the Hornets picked up Kyrie Irving just for Kyle Lowry just for name purposes only. Only kept him there for like a week. Traded him just to get some other people. They did get Seth Curry, and he's wearing his dad Dale Curry's number that played for the Hornets back in the day. But again, I was banking on the Hornets kind of taking off a little bit since the Hawks were not doing that well. But once they moved on from Kyle Lowry and got these other folks in, once again, I'm not so sure. So it's almost like the same type of feeling I have with the Panthers right now. It's kind of looped in. It's just meh. And we just hope that, they get good people. But I really do think, Jack, at this point, it's time to move on from Trae Young, unfortunately.
I would agree with that. I definitely would agree with it. And basketball does that a lot. They'll pick up a player just to trade him to get other picks, too. I've seen that happen quite a bit, especially this year.
Like, man, I was so excited.
So we're going to cut a little short today. We didn't have the Philly sports guy in today, but we did have King Hooley. We appreciate you coming and getting up early this morning from California and coming in and sharing the thing. And guy, Truth Be Told podcast. Am I saying it right? I want to make sure I get this right.
Truth Be Told Sports podcast.
Sports Podcast.
Hey,
Check them out.
The sports today.
Again, new to the channel. Happy to have them on. And from Mac Jack, Sonia Pearson, and King Hooley, thank you for joining us this morning. Thanks for tuning in on all the comments, the views, the likes, the loves. We love having you. Have a great Sunday, folks. And go to church, please, because we need a little bit more